Hello everyone, it's Lindsay, and today I have a fun kind of mixed media tutorial for you. And so I wanted to show you how I made these custom alphas to match the newest This Is Love devotional kit from Illustrated Faith and Dayspring. And I'm going to be using some photo paper and some Distress Oxide inks and some die cuts. You definitely could do this with like alcohol inks. You could probably even do it with Sharpie markers, maybe experiment if you don't have Distress Oxides. Experiment with regular Distress inks and see what you get. And if you don't have a die cutting setup, you can hand cut letters out and that kind of thing. So don't feel like you have to rush out and buy everything that I have that I'm using for this tutorial. Definitely jump in and experiment and see what works for you. But I really had a lot of fun with this technique and I can't wait to show you what I do. So we'll jump in. I'll show you how to make these, and then at the very end I'll come back in and show you a page completed using these alphabets. So let's dive in and I'll show you what I did.
Okay, so I'm starting off with some photo paper that's glossy. I have it in 4x6, but you could definitely use 8.5x11 and just cut it down. This does work better with a nicer photo paper, not the kind from the dollar store. It doesn't quite hold up to this technique. And then I'm working on a non-stick craft sheet, and I'm going to be smushing out some Distress Oxides. And I'm using peacock feathers, cracked pistachio, and peeled paint. And then I went ahead and spritzed it with some water to get it activated. And then I'm going to press the photo paper shiny side down into the ink. And I'm just going to kind of mush it around. This technique you really don't have control over, so you just have to kind of go for it and keep building up layers, and you really won't know what it's going to look like until the final step. So just have fun with it. In between layers, I'm going to go ahead and hit it with my heat tool to dry it. If I went back into more paint while it was wet, it would just mix and not layer. That's one neat thing about Distress Oxide inks is they actually layer on top of each other, and so when you're done, you're going to actually be able to see the different layers of the different colors instead of just a big muddled mess. So I'm going to go ahead and dry that with my heat tool, and then I'm going to go back in with those same three colors, and I may look at it and say that I want more of the peacock feather color and less of the peeled paint, and just kind of adjust it that way. Again, hitting it with some plain water, and then I can dip that back into that ink and just kind of trying to fill in all the white spaces. I don't really want any white on there because the alpha letters are pretty small, and so the white would be really noticeable on those. So I want it as completely covered in color as I can. And I have found like 2 to 4 layers is best. I usually stick to 2 or 3. If you get too many going, then it just kind of gets to be really busy and really muddled, and some colors just kind of take over. So here's the magic. It's all dry, and I'm going to take a dry paper towel and buff off that top layer. How awesome is this? It totally reveals just a completely different background underneath the oxidation. So if you play with these inks on regular paper, that doesn't buff off. It doesn't come off. But on this photo paper, whatever unique pigment attributes to this ink, make it do this where you can buff off that top layer. So you'll see it again here in a minute, but I'm going to go in with my other one, and I'm going to be using some Worn Lipstick Seamless Preserves and Fossilized Amber, and a little bit I'll bring in some Abandoned Coral as well. And same thing, I'm just going to dip my photo paper glossy side down. I have not tried this with matte photo paper, so I'm not sure if it would work any different. One thing is I'm working with this, I really love what it looked like before I buffed it, but you have to buff it, because if you don't buff it and you go to use those letters, that like chalkiness will rub off. It's not permanent, so it's best just to go ahead and buff it off. If you wanted to keep that unique chalkiness that Distress Oxides have, then you'll want to do this on watercolor paper. Cardstock probably isn't going to hold up to this much water, so if you use some watercolor paper and do this technique, then you can maintain that kind of chalky effect that Distress Oxides have. So I'm going to go back in with my second layer. And it is very, very messy, so you do want to work on something that's non-stick. If you don't have a mat like this, you could use just wax paper across your workspace, and that would work as well. Again, I'm being sure to dry in between layers. I love the pretty marbleized texture that this gives. It is so awesome. My boys and I sat and did this for hours the other night. They were obsessed with this whole picking out colors and creating these backgrounds and the whole like surprise mystery of the whole thing. So here's where I'm going to bring in a little bit of abandoned coral. I felt like it needed a little bit brighter, darker pink to match the colors in the kit. But have fun experimenting with different color combinations and maybe 1 or 2 colors or 4 colors. Just kind of see what you can come up with. And this is amazing. When you start buffing off that chalky top layer is when it reveals all those layers of color and texture. It's so vibrant, so pretty. Love, love, love it. And so here are my 2 that I created, and now we can go ahead and die cut these. So I'm going to be using this Tim Holtz Sizzix alpha die, and then this die set here is a set from Concord and Ninth. I also have Spellbinders, alphabets, but I'm not going to use those today. I'll just use these 2 here. They're a little bit smaller. So I'm using my Platinum 6 die cutting machine. I have the Big Shot as well, but for the projects that I do, this works great, and it's a little bit cheaper than the Big Shot machine. So I'm going to set up my sandwich with my base plate, a cutting plate, the watercolor piece face up, and then here are my Concord and Ninth alphabets, and you can see I've actually attached them to some contact paper like you would line shelves with, and this way they all stay together. I don't have to line out all 26 letters and then some every time I want to cut this out. So I have the entire alphabet, A through Z, and then an ampersand on there, and I can just set that right over my mixed media piece, put on that top cutting plate, and then run it through the machine. I do like to run this through twice just because that photo paper is a little bit tougher and thicker than just regular cardstock or paper. And then I can go ahead and peel that off, and then in a minute we'll pop all those out. So I went ahead and did the same thing for the pink piece using the Sizzix alphabet dies. Same thing, I have those attached to some contact paper so I can just stick them down on there all at once. And then I can start popping out all of those letters. And you can see with this die set, they stay inside the dies, but I can just take a craft pick and pop all of those alphabets out. This is a little bit tedious, takes a little bit of time, but turn on a good podcast or a movie or something and sit and pop all those out. So here are all those alphabets. They are so, so fun. I love the texture and it just has this really unique marbleized look that you don't quite get with just watercolor. And you can see here, this set from Concord and Ninth, you can actually separate the 2 pieces. So you could have almost 3 different sets. You can have the outline, the inside, or leave them together. And then I have a little bit of extra here on the bottom. Don't throw that away. I can use this to tab punch or use any of my other handheld punches to punch out shapes. And so I utilize every little bit of photo paper. Photo paper isn't horribly inexpensive. I found a good deal on Amazon. I'll link it down below. So I want to use up every last little bit of it. And then I can incorporate those pieces into my journaling. How awesome is that?
Okay, so I went ahead and took the Crazy About You devotional card from the This Is Love devotional kit, read through the devotion, and an entry in Psalm 139, 17 through 18, which reads, "Your eyes saw my unformed substance. In your book were written, every one of them, the days that were formed for me, when as yet there was none of them. How precious to me are your thoughts, O God. How vast is the sum of them." And this is talking about how we were created unique, and even those parts of us that maybe we're not happy about or are frustrated about or whatever it might be, just call out to God and just remember He loves you for your uniqueness and He made you just the way you are. Not to say that there aren't attributes that maybe can be improved upon, like being negative or something like that. I don't think that that's necessarily an attribute that God wants us to have, but maybe your crazy, unique parts of you that God made you to be, embrace those and just remember that He loves you for those. So I went ahead and just created a really fun, textured entry, and I kind of just played around. I didn't film the process, so I was playing with some new products, but you can see I used those alphabets that we just created, and I ran them through my Xyron sticker maker and made them into stickers, especially for these ones that have the outlines. That way they stay all together, and just made little stickers out of them. And then for the background, I played with this Bria Reese texture sand and mixed it in with some white acrylic paint, and then went in with some Neocolor 2 crayons. And I picked this up at Hobby Lobby with their recent 75% off sale, so I got it for like $1 or something and thought it would be fun. And I don't know if you're gonna be able to see on camera, but it's like chunky sand on my page. So it was really fun, really messy. Mixed in some Neocolors, did some stamping with some Neocolor 2s, did some stitching, created a tab out of that same mixed media piece that we just made, and made a little journaling spot, and that was it. So really fun entry there. You can see no real bleed through on the back. I did lay down some white acrylic paint before I went in with the Neocolor 2s. So that is it. I hope you had fun watching this technique with these letters, and let me know if you try it out for yourself. You could do this. I have a similar video on cardstock with paints. You could do something like that. I just love the fun surprise that you get with this technique here. So leave me any questions down below, any comments you might have. Give this video a thumbs up if it was super fun and you enjoyed it. Subscribe to my channel if you're not already subscribed, and head on over to the blog for more close-up pictures and links to the products used today. And until next time, thank you so much. Bye-bye.